Okay, everyone, we have our game at hand, Infi versus XiXi, and this is a super important match right now for our two players here, the WGL. Down to the bottom left of the map, we have Infi as a human in red, and up to the top right, the tree hugger. We're actually seeing XiXi here. So this is going to be super important for a very particular reason. Those guys are currently in a group with Moon, a couple of foreigners like Cash, for example. And Moon has so far absolutely dominated every single game that he played. He hasn't lost the map yet, and he holds that #1 spot in the group. And there are 6 players in every single group, and only 2 make it out. So Moon is pretty much a lock-in to make it out of the group. And there's still 3 players that have a very, very similar score right now, pretty much identical, and that is XiXi, Infi, and Cash. So all 3 of them are in a position where they can make it into that #2 spot and still make it out of the group. And now 2 of them face off against each other in this particular series here, and therefore it's super important to see who's gonna make it out of this. A quick pause requested by XiXi, so we might have a bit of a break here, but again, just to reiterate that this is going to be a super important series because the player who takes it will have the advantage over his opponent in the group standings, and then it's just going to be a battle between him and Cash depending on the results that Cash himself is able to get in the rest of the tournament. With that being said, we're already back to business here, so only a quick pause. Not quite sure what exactly the issue was, but could have been that it was just a bit of a sound problem or whatever. It got resolved pretty quickly. And I'm really hyped for this one, because this should actually be a great game right now. Archmage first on the side of our human player, Infi, and at the same time we still see the Keeper being produced here. Now keep in mind, the patch is already out. So the new patch is out, but we're still playing with the old client here. So those changes to the Keeper, the shorter duration on the Entangle is not actually in play. And of course, a lot of players that looked at those changes and at the patch notes have already said that they don't really expect too much to change on the side of the Keeper, that it's still probably the main hero for Nightelf. But there have been quite a few changes where Nightelf in particular have been hit. Damage of Huntress, for example, and a couple of other things when it comes to the owls that you can send out with your Huntress too. So we're going to see how much of an effect the patch is going to have in terms of balance after the tournament here. But for the WGL, we are still playing with 1.3, 0.1. First item, Claws of Attack. Always nice to have that on a ranged hero. Of course, Blade Master being the one exception here, but in general you want to have the Claws on a ranged hero so that you can get reliably these auto attacks in and get that damage. And in the meantime, we're now having, with the help of the Militia, a little bit more creeping going on at the bottom of the map. We're having Infi already trying to just rush towards level 2. You want to have that Brilliance Aura. In the next patch, the Brilliance Aura is actually going to get buffed, but the the interesting part is it only gets buffed on level 3. So I'm not quite sure what exactly the thought process was, because you don't see too many level 7 Archmages these days. So I'm not quite sure what Blizzard was thinking when they said, okay, we're going to buff the Brilliance Aura, but we're only going to buff the last level. Because so far, I haven't really seen a lot of human players that were complaining about the late game Brilliance Aura mana regeneration. So it was a little bit interesting. And everybody that I talked to is just like, well, you usually take that on 7, so what the hell do I want to do with that? At that point, you have other problems. So a few of the changes definitely pretty questionable. I mean, Warden is getting +1 intelligence, and I think the Pitlord gets +1 agility. So if those changes are going to have an impact, that's something that only time can tell. But for the time being, in this game, they don't play a role. Replenishment Potion now taken on the side of Infi. And we're having him, of course, on level 2, so he gets the Brilliance Aura on level 1. Both of them still continue creeping here, especially with that Ancient of War. There's a little bit of a pathing problem here, with the Archer actually blocking its way. I mean, can you imagine you're a big fucking tree and there's like a little puny Archer just like blocking your way? I would just stomp on that thing or kick it out of the way, but nope. The Ancient of War is well-mannered, so it's trying to walk around it and be polite. But yeah. With the access that we are seeing to the Mercenary camp, you of course can immediately get a Forest Troll Shadow Priest here, can help you with a Dispel on the Water Elementals, give you a bit of free experience, so to say. And you're also having the Forest Troll Berserker here right now. So pretty hefty units. Keeper on level 3 already, and good items for him too. Having the Robe of the Magi here is fantastic for him. That bad boy's not going to do too much. Dispels the Water Elemental at least before he dies, so sacrifices himself to get a bit experience for the Keeper. But having these items gives plus 15 attack to the Keeper. And look at his mana pool. That guy has nearly as much mana as he has hit points at this point in time. And he is putting it to some use. Entangles everywhere right now. One footman down, second one about to die. Infi gets some damage in too and tries to get the archers down, but 4 hit points remaining. Another entangle already hitting home. And that Ancient of War wants a piece of the action, but he just doesn't get it right now. So that Keeper is actually terrifying. I mean, not only is the guy ripped, have you seen his six-pack? He also has this constant pissed look on his face, so he's just angry and wants to kill people. And he has the tools to make it happen. Plus 15 attack damage and the mana pool that goes with it, considering his item choices, is pretty amazing right now. So yeah, he can definitely pack a punch. On the other side, looking into the main base of Infi, we're having him with a complete attack into the keep, and we're seeing Arcane Sanctum being put in play. Obviously, with the one base that we're seeing from him right now, we now have also the Blacksmith starting to go into Archers. Second hero for him, the Alchemist finds the Potion of Invulnerability. So decent items in general, but it's not really quite on the level of what we're seeing for his opponent just yet. The harass potential that we are having on XiXi's side is great, and he's already using that right now. Without a Mountain King, there's not really too much that you can do against the harass, except of just try and piss the Keeper off a little bit, chase him down with a Chemical Rage if you have access to it, and put a bit of extra pressure on. There's an Alchemist on both sides right now, especially the Keeper Alchemist setup is something that we're seeing a lot. I mean, Todd, for example, has been playing with a lot of Alchemist first even, and actually has a very, interestingly enough, very nice success, at least in the latter games here. But of course, when we're looking at the WGL, you're still having a few different starting heroes coming to play here. Main reason why I'm telling that is just Alchemist in general is insanely powerful right now, and therefore oftentimes the preferred choice as the second hero, especially if you're trying to either go for a bit of a timing push or if you have to defend against some push, because you will get access to the Tavern hero directly after finishing your creep tech and don't have to wait for the hero to be trained in your altar. Ancient of Lore, double of Ancient of Lore in the main base right now. Tag to the Tree of Eternity immediately as well. I mean, one of the big problems that a lot of the players in the tournament faced so far when they were going up against elves were Mountain Giants. So the combo of adding Mountain Giants later on in the game, getting a couple of Druids of the Claw in there as well, has been very, very popular. Dryads usually coming into play as well if you need the additional Dispel too. But that's something that we can definitely expect in this game. Get a couple of Druids in, maybe later on Mountain Giants as well, and play around that. And right now, I would definitely say that XiXi is just absolutely looking fantastic. We have still good experience on the side of Infi. That's definitely something that he has right now. He has crept a lot, he has really tried to do his best here. Alchemist is on the way to level 3, gets the Claws of Attack +6, probably gonna hand those over later on. But the Keeper still attempting to be a bit of a nuisance, and by now he's already level 4, we have the Staff of Preservation. For me personally, it's really just that insane amount of damage that we have through auto attacks and the mana pool for the first hero for XiXi that it can make the big difference later on. I mean, he's just moving in and he's trying to go straight for the Entangle again, and even if you know that Arcane Tower is starting to screw with him a little bit, it's going to take an eternity to actually drain the mana here. And he's going to get more than only one Peasant. He's going to get a lot more than that. Already trying to aim for the Rifleman here, but of course, as you can tell, we're having a bit of a counter push by Infi, who's just saying, dude, if your first hero isn't here, screw you, I'm going for it. You don't have a Staff of Teleportation, so have fun running to the other side of the map. Ancient of War goes down already. And there's the pressure that we've been talking about. The Keeper already running back. Lucky for him, he has 4 legs, and therefore is a little bit faster. It's the same speed, but yeah. At least he looks fast, and that's all that matters. Fake it until you make it. But here comes the pressure play already. One wisp down, second one gets the detonate in, so alleviates the Archmage of a little bit of mana. Supply numbers right now, 42 for the human, 37 for the Nightelf. Trying to get another Rifleman killed, and he gets it just before the town portal is through. XiXi with a level 2 on the Alchemist. Has a Potion of Lesser Invulnerability now as well. And that little timing that we saw from Infi didn't really do too much. I mean, one of the thought process from Infi here was, of course, try and attack before the tech is through. You can see that more Mountain Giants are coming in now. We have Hardened Skin being researched. And the attack just hit before that was the case. But he just couldn't really do anything against the setup that we are seeing on the side of XiXi. So things are really starting to look a little bit grim for Infi in general. We saw a couple of human versus Nightelf games just yesterday where Hawk, for example, when he played against Hunter, was able to get himself a very strong late game army with knights, with, on a castle attack with knights. He had a lot of castles in as well, and had an alchemist that was heavily focused on healing spray and trying to give sustain to his army. And that setup was actually very, very powerful because there was very little that died. It was tough for Hunter to get any damage in. So might be something that in the long run Infi can put into the field, but for the time being that's definitely not quite the case. Items, on the other hand, are all of a sudden starting to flip in favor of the human player. Getting Ilaria's Flute here as a human is absolutely nuts. I mean, just look at that damage on the Archmage alone already, thanks to the claws. Double claws of attack +6, gets the circular ability, gloves of haste as well. That guy is a machine gun at this point. We're still seeing a bit of keeper harass happening down to the bottom. Even more dangerous now with the Orb of Venom. +14 attack, so he actually got rid of the Robe of the Magi. Realized that it was a bit too much and rather would have the gold here. Anchor of Reincarnation on the Alchemist. But once again, the pressure here through the Archmage, and we're going up to the top. Town Portal should be bought. Yep, that's exactly what he did just now. But the Alchemist is now with that Ilaria's Flute of Accuracy fantastic. I mean, the damage increased +2 on the Rifleman, taking one of the wells out right away. Nice kill against the Dryad too, was a bit too far forward. Again, the Keeper on the move as he's trying to get a Staff of Teleportation, I would assume, to portal in. Yep, that's what we're seeing right here in the corner. Already the pressure on the Alchemist. He has the Anchor of Reincarnation. There's not a lot of damage. That's the biggest problem right now for XiXi. That timing attack here is so much more successful right now because we have Mountain Giants in play, but there's basically no damage for XiXi. He just doesn't have anything yet. He's at 40 supply against 50, and Infi is playing this absolutely perfectly. The aura that he found is insanely strong right now, and look at those Mountain Giants. They're not gonna do jack shit right now. They are tanky, but they don't have the damage output. There's 2 archers in the back, and that's it. Infi is just running over XiXi at this point. His army is strong. We have him with a +2 attack upgrade, and that's exactly when he started the attack. He has the items to boot, even in the back now, the healing wards. The Ankh comes into play as we're seeing the Alchemist die for the first time. But right now, with only 28 supply, XiXi is just taking a beating here. He doesn't have any damage. The one base rifle push that we're seeing with the help of all these priests is doing so much work here. Ilaria's Flute is brutal. You have an Archmage with +18 attack damage. And of course the Gloves of Haste as well. And this is just an absolute disaster for XiXi now. The beginning of the game was great for him. He had decent items. The Keeper did work with a harass. But Infi just pushed through, got his units together, hit that timing perfectly, and is now cleaning house. GG is called as XiXi leaves the game and Infi takes the lead. Game number 2, everyone. Infi versus XiXi, and Infi absolutely rocking it in game number 1. Hitting a pretty cool timing here and not leaving XiXi any chance. The Mountain Giants were out, at least 2 of them, but the problem was that he just didn't have any damage. Now up to the top right, we're having Infi again. He wants to make this, of course, a quick 2-0. And at the bottom of the map, we are seeing XiXi. Quite a little bit of a beating in the last game. Was actually kind of interesting because the early game went really well for him. Great items, put a lot of pressure onto his opponent, dropped a couple of footmen, was able to harass a few of the opponent's peasants, even take on a rifleman in the base. But then Infi finding Ilaria's Flute, hitting a great timing just when XiXi had Mountain Giants, but no damage. And it was just extremely well executed. Not really a lot that XiXi could do about it. Now again, we're seeing the Keeper coming in as the first hero. Engine of War already built right over here, trying to, of course, get access to both of the camps. It was actually pretty cool. In case you haven't watched the game yet, it's going to be uploaded to the YouTube channel in a little bit, or should be up by now. There was actually a game where Lucifer played against Colorful, and he sent out his first school right down here to attract the attention of the creep camps and force cancel or kill eventually on that Ancient of War that you oftentimes see so far forward because a Nightelf player wants access to both of these camps. It was a pretty cool move that cost him, of course, a lot of wood and eventually led to Lucifer having to build an extra necropolis in his main base just to get supply. So there's definitely a couple of moves that you can make when you go up against Nightelf in order to screw a little bit with that early Ancient of War positioning depending on the map. And Amazonia is definitely one of the maps where that's possible for you. But in this particular setup, we're just now seeing a pretty normal creep pattern emerge. One of the big strengths of humans is, of course, that you can transform your peasants into militia for a limited duration of time, and therefore you can also take the bigger camps immediately. Gloves of Haste already taken here, and at the same time the second camp attracted. We're seeing the creep pattern, of course, down to the bottom of the map being quite similar. And Ring of Protection plus 2. One of the shitty items that you can get in that spot, definitely not quite what he wanted here. So with the Keeper in this position, he's still going to hit his level 2 now. But we have, as you can tell, a little bit more of a relaxed early game as both of them are just going for the additional experience and not any kind of harass just yet. Also seeing the Gauntlets of Augur Strength. I mean, assuming that there's a very good chance that we're going to see an Alchemist as the second hero again, that's going to be a great item for him. Alchemist as the main attribute has Strength, so that +3 is not only going to boost his hit point pool, but in addition to that also give him a bit more attack damage, and that's always a boon. And we have, again, Scouting emerge here. Infi is just double checking. Okay, what are you doing? Are you teching? Are you trying to overrun me? He sees the Tree of Life tech, so he kind of knows what's coming right now. There's always the chance that you're going up against a Nightelf player that decides that he just wants to build a ton of tier 1 units and get some map pressure. It's one of the strategy that Nightelf, for example, uses oftentimes against Undead in the early game. You're going to see a lot of Hunters emerge and a couple of Archers as well. And then one of the ideas is that with a Keeper, you control the map. You just try and force fights by creep checking your opponent. You find him on the map, you drop an Entangle, and you force them into a fight that they can't win because you have the superior tier 1 units on the field. But in this case, it's just a standard tech that we're seeing from XiXi. Nothing too fancy for him. And by the time that we're seeing this, we already have a bit of an aggressive stance from Infi on the map. Entangle on the Footman, but the pressure also on XiXi's Keeper. Another item being grabbed, by the way, double Gauntlets of Augur Strength right now, and killing his own unit. We talked about that earlier. If you're a bit newer to the game, everything hinges on heroes, on experience, so you're trying to deny your own units before they fall so that your opponent doesn't get any XP. This, on the other hand, is also a pretty cool move. It's always awesome when you're seeing a player utilize a bit of parallel creeping while it's still harassing with his units. We see that a lot from Orcs in particular that go Blade Master first. But in this case, we're having a creep happening up at the top and down here as well. So he's stealing a few camps away from his opponent, stealing a few items away. Circlet of Nobility gets even the Spider-Man socks, so a bit more agility for him here as well. But yeah, this is really, really good for Infi already. I mean, the Keeper hasn't hit level 2. He also has really no luck with items. Double Ring of Protection right now, that's all that he gets. And in the meantime, the Archmage has hit level 3, has the access to the Water Elemental, so things are looking good for Infi here. The tech to tier 2 is nearly completed. I have a couple of Riflemen already produced, who is heading straight into that one base Rifleman strategy again that we saw in the last game. I mean, for a very good reason. Bigger amount of archers that we're now seeing for his opponent, and the Tree of Life tech also nearly completed. So I would expect that we're going to see yeah, that's already Gauntlets of Augur Strength on the ground. Alchemist is being put in, and that's +6 attack and of course a hit point bonus as well. The Keeper is a little bit late, so he goes to the tavern, is also trying to get himself an Alchemist here right now, or not. Hello? Looks like the Alchemist doesn't really want to play, but yeah, he has one by now. But things are already looking good for Infi. In terms of supply, we have 33 against 36, so still both of them sitting at a very, very similar level at this point. Water Elemental is it going to fall before it expires? He doesn't even chase it. But we have another item grab already on the way as the Sasquatch is being taken out. The Creepjack is going to be there in a second. Okay, gets the Wand of Lightning Shield. Could have been better, for sure, but can do a bit of damage, especially if at any point XiXi is going to try to use Shadow Melt to keep some of those units hidden. But the main part of the experience goes over to the Nightelf for now. But Infi just doesn't let up. So Infi is just like very active on the map right now, is getting his army together, is trying to get a few more items. We have some flying sheeps on the map, which is always a cool thing. I would personally say that next to the frog, the flying sheep is the best. But you can't beat the frog. The frog is just a little bit too strong. I feel like the frog deserves an extra hero, but that's me. Archmage here with the Sobi mask, probably can hand that over if need be. The town portal is there, barely. The alchemist actually was below 100 hit points, so he passes the town portal over and TP's out. Good item still, but yeah, that alchemist took a bit of a beating there in that last fight. Still good hero levels. Level 2 alchemist, level 3, nearly level 4 archmage. This is double check in the main base. Again, the tech into tier 3. Already the Ancient of Laws on the way. So very similar strategy. Pretty much identical actually to what we've seen in the last game. The big difference being a few more archers here. You really need a damage output. Like as we said before, once that you have Mountain Giants and a very strong Nightelf army in the field, it's really difficult to deal with that, since Mountain Giants, once they are upgraded, it's so tough to take them down. But they don't do a ton of damage, so you really need some damage healers. And we had now several games where the opponent of the Nightelf, mainly humans, were hitting great timings when there was just a few Mountain Giants in the game, but not enough damage output to really do anything with it. So that's really the crucial part for that Nightelf strategy right now that they need to be careful about. We're having, for the time being, still a bit more creeping going on. Potion of Lesser Invulnerability is now absolutely crucial. We're seeing Sentry Wards coming into play, so that can be a pretty nice advantage for you. Sentry Wards is always like, it's a little bit weird. Like, Sentry Wards is one of those items where you are happy about the vision that it grants you, and it can really help you to set up a good creep jack, or just to be aware what your opponent does. Frog, by the way. But at the same time, one of the issues that you have with it is you obviously get just an item that has 2 charges, and you could have found something way better for your army. So yeah, it's one of these things which can be amazing depending on how the game goes, but oftentimes you would prefer something else. Level 4 for the Archmage. Nice attempt to also steal a few of those creeps away from your opponent. 50 supply for Infi, 43 now on the side of XiXi, and we're seeing him with the first Dryads in play. Nice focus on the Archmage. He was a little bit too far out there. Keep in mind, there is no Town Portal right now. There's a Potion of Lesser Invulnerability that Infi can give over to his AM if need be, but he still needs to be cautious because Entangle plus Focus Fire and Dryad Slow is nothing to to shrug off too easily here. Mountain Giants got their first upgrade. No, actually, Hardened Skin is just now being halfway researched. But yeah, this is now the time when he needs to be a little bit cautious. Again, with the Entangle against the Rifleman this time, there is no Town Portal. So definitely something to be careful about here. Yeah, there's the level 3 for the Alchemist, has to sustain. If you have an Alchemist and he gets the heals through, and at the same time you have Priests also healing your army up, it's so difficult to kill anything. And that's exactly the problem that we're seeing XiXi now run into. He has a couple of units in the beefy Mountain Giant at the front, but first of all he's still waiting for the Hardened Skin to be completely researched, and it's getting a little bit tough. Good damage against the Alchemist though, but the immediate Potion of Lesser Invulnerability being used here. And look at that item again. Ilaria's Flute of Accuracy for the 2nd time in a row now. This is a nightmare for XiXi. Again, the extra damage on all those ranged units that we're seeing for Infi, and it's doing so much work. Bit more damage here in the backline. Wisps coming in for the Dispel and draining the mana of those Priests, taking the Water Elemental out too, but he needs to make sure that Mountain Giant doesn't fall. He has a Staff of Preservation, so it shouldn't really be an issue for him to staff that out. Good item on the Alchemist as well with the Potion of Greater Healing. Also, those Ring of Protections might not be the best rings, but at least they're making him a bit more tanky. And here comes Mountain Giant. Is that Mountain Giant number 2? Or did he just heal it up? Yeah, that's Mountain Giant number 2. Okay. Killing his Archer too as well. So the idea behind killing an Archer is pretty simple. He was at 46 supply, and he wanted to make sure that he can put another Mountain Giant into play. So he doesn't want to go into the low upkeep. Therefore, he kills his own Archer, has the supply to go up to 50. And we have now the Nightelf player on 50 supply, 48 for Infi. For everyone that is not quite that familiar with Warcraft 3 just yet, actually, let me talk about that later, because we have another fight coming up. And again, the Entangle. He has another Potion of Lesser Invulnerability. Might have to use that. The taunts already coming through in the Mountain Giants. The heavy hit point blockers at that front are doing solid work here. And by now, we have a bit more damage than we had in the last game for XiXi, so there's definitely a better chance for him to fight. He also has the Orb of Venom now, and that is going to help him with the extra damage here too. All that poison damage that we're seeing from the Nightelf now. Level 3 on the Keeper. level 2 on the Alchemist compared to the 4 on the Archmage and the level 3 on the Alchemist that we're seeing for Infi. So again, the superior creep patterns for Infi, the human player just being a bit on a different level here. Triple Mountain Giant for now, and immediately utilizing that taunt to make sure that his backline is staying mostly safe. That Archmage needs to be a little bit careful, was way too far out there. They get punished slightly, but here comes the focus onto that Alchemist again. Potion of Lesser Invulnerability could be drawn out at some point, but again the Keeper is just getting bodied. Even has to use his Town Portal right now to reposition himself and the army. But another Archer is lost, and we're looking at a very familiar pattern. It happened in the last game, and it happens again. There's not enough damage on the side of XiXi to do anything about this army here. You can tank those hits all day long. If you don't have the damage output, then you can't do anything about it. The Dryad goes down, wrecked by the piercing damage on the side of the Rifleman, and now we're seeing 47 supply for XiXi against the 50 for Infi. But can he force the human player back? Can he somehow force a TP here maybe? He's taking out at least the Water Elementals. That's more experience in his hands, but one of the Mountain Giants goes down. That's 6 supply down now for XiXi. He's dropping down to 40 against 50, but at least the Alchemist is taking a bit of a beating. Potion of Lesser Invulnerability is still in inventory, and Infi doesn't even use it. Infi just shrugs it off, even with the Entangle there. He's just saying, no, that's fine, dude, I got this. Moves back, doesn't have to pop the item, and is still absolutely wrecking the damage dealers on the side of XiXi. One Mountain Giant in the back has to drain the Moonwells. We're seeing another 2 Mountain Giants being produced, but again, you don't have a lot of damage here. The problem is once more that you have the heal power of the Alchemist combined with the heal power of the Priests, and the Mountain Giants are just not in a position where they can do enough damage to do any impact, to have any impact in this particular situation. There's too much sustain. And that's exactly what he utilizes now. He by now also has the Master upgrade for the Priest. We have enough fire coming in. You're not going to kill jack shit with only Mountain Giants here. This is just a matter of time. We're having XiXi at 50 supply, but it's mostly Mountain Giants. 50 also for Infi, and as you can see, those Mountain Giants just don't do anything. All the damage they do is immediately being healed up again. And with the enough fire and him not having any Dispel, there's little he can do. He's finally trying to detonate a couple of Wisps into that backline, and that helps to get rid of most of the inner fire, but it's recast immediately as those priests still have a little bit of mana. Another Mountain Giant just barely staffed out. Good move by him, but finally we're seeing a little bit of an impact. What's that Keeper doing? He's lazy. He's actually sleeping at work. Should be fired in my opinion. Finally starting to take a bit of a part in the fight, and here we go. Finally, with all the priests drained of mana, we're seeing him able to force Infi back. But it's still a tricky position. With all the Mountain Giants in play, a lot of them drained, we are probably going to see a bit of a switch into damage units again, and there's at least a Dryad coming through. The Orb of Venom was actually great to get some damage in, and eventually Infi had to move back. 54 supply right now for the Nightelf, and Infi himself is sitting at 55 supply. But you can already tell that without the Dispel, without having those Wisps detonating in the backline, forcing the Priests to recast the Inner Fire, it was just insanely difficult. Another great move here against those Priests. Priests are all out of mana, basically. And that's when you can start having more of a chance here. Needs to be careful with the Mountain Giants that he has. 1-1 upgrades currently on them. But we have also a couple of Mortar teams starting to join the fun against the unarmored Dryads. Staffs out one, gets that in. The fight still continuing here, but the focus fire is on, and there's a Scroll of the Beast that has been used as well. Mountain Giant goes down level 4 on Infi's Alchemist. We're seeing a Rifleman about to be executed here and finally falls. Another staff would be great for him to keep that Mountain Giant alive here, but it actually misses it, loses it. Only has one Staff of Preservation. Can't lose another here, and Infi forces him back for now. 60 supply for the human player, 45 for the Night Elf. XiXi is in a bit of a pickle here as he starts to move back once again. So I was talking about upkeeps a little bit earlier. If some of the viewers that we are currently seeing here are a little bit newer to Warcraft. So in Warcraft, once you cross 50 supply, you enter low upkeep, which means that you don't get the full resources anymore from your workers that are harvesting wood and gold. You only get 70% of it. And once you cross above 80 supply, between 80 and 100, which is the max supply, you only get 40%. So every single time you see a player crossing 50 supply, it's actually pretty crucial. That's also the reason why I talked earlier about that that archer that he himself killed to stay at 50 supply. But Infi isn't really worried about that at all. He is now in a position where he's saying, dude, I'm totally fine. I'm one base pushing you. I have all the tech that I need. He's at 68 supply right now, so he is in low upkeep. As we see XiXi creeping a bit as well, gets a Medallion of Courage here, and he is at 53 supply. So it's far behind the human player here, who with that Ilaria's full of accuracy has an insane damage output. I mean, the Rifleman, for the time being, with a +3 attack upgrade, have a +6 here, actually. The Inner Fire, of course, adding the extra armor, and things are just looking grim for XiXi. Mortars in the back, we are trying to count the armor type of the Dryads, who are all the way in the back line, so the mortars with the siege damage are going to try and rack them. 1-1 upgrades only on side of the Dryads and the Mountain Giants. Here come those Wisps again that we talked about earlier. That had a huge impact in the previous fight, but things are not looking good for XiXi. He lost too many Moonwells already. He's already in oversupply. 49 out of 30 supply for him, 68 for Infi. And Infi, he wants the game right now. He wants the 2-0 victory, and it's looking good. The Alchemist healing again, everything up here with the help of the Priests too. Nearly on level 5. There's the level. The Archmage on 5.5, about to hit his ultimate as well. And XiXi is just going to be forced back into a corner. 40 supply for him against the 65 of Infi, the human player, racking through that army. One mortar going down, and finally an upgrade for the Alchemist on the side of the Nightelf too. But it's just not enough to keep the Mountain Giant alive here. It's going to fall eventually, and the rest of the army is also biting the dust. 34 supply is not enough. There's not enough damage dealers anymore, and Infi is just mercilessly shredding through that army, taking it down one unit after another. And at this point, with the Moonwells already empty, it being day as well, they're not even regenerating. There is just nothing that XiXi can do about this. The one base Rifleman push too strong as Infi takes game number 2 and takes this series without dropping a map.